Have twins and you're raising them the same time, the same way, and they're completely different human beings.
What happens when a billionaire falls for a beautiful human rights lawyer? It sounds like the plot of a fairy tale romantic movie from Hollywood, right? Well, this is the real-life fairy tale of George Clooney and his wife, Amal Clooney. From their first encounter that brought them together to their beautiful twins, Alexander and Ella, this power couple has captured the hearts of millions worldwide. Join us as we unveil fascinating details of George and Amal's love story and their children today. Picture yourself sitting in the back row of a high-profile movie premiere with celebrities and other big shots. And there, your gaze lands on two people who stand out of the crowd. Well, George Clooney and his wife, Amal Clooney. It's hard to imagine when George was not the actor on everybody's lips. He was a talented Hollywood A-lister and had a knack for acting roles back-to-back. His wife, the young, ambitious, smart, British-Lebanese human rights lawyer, is one stunning angel who keeps many heads turned her way each time she is around. Unlike the typical pair of celebrities who normally end up with a fellow actor and actress, you may be surprised George found love with a lawyer. At this point, if you're wondering how their beautiful love story started, do you think it was a fairy tale? Let's find out. It was just an ordinary night in 2013 at George Clooney's villa in Lake Como, where he invited a friend along for company. This friend asked if he could bring another company, and George agreed. After all, the more, the merrier. That was how he met his future wife, Amal Clooney. George, as we mentioned earlier, was a big movie star, and she was a smart human rights lawyer. Ordinarily, you would not expect them to have much in common initially, but they just clicked. Even Amal confirmed she wasn't seeking a partner then because she was still busy building her life and career until she met George, and it felt like the universe shifted for him. George Clooney told the story of his first date with Amal on The Drew Barrymore Show. It turned out he was in London to make a movie, and he felt what better way to woo Amal than to surprise her with a 150-piece orchestra at Abbey Road? Well, who would not be impressed by that? So he called her and invited her to come take a look. Her reaction was just so Amal. "Yeah, I am in the middle of a meeting with the Muslim Brotherhood, but I'll come right over," was her response. It's crazy how love makes you move mountains for someone so special. There she was, in the middle of trying to redo a constitution, and she was just going to take a break to meet George at Abbey Road. George Clooney has mentioned that his first date with Amal went well, and they just hit it off. They went to dinner at this super cool restaurant, and surprisingly, when they stepped out, they were met with about 50 paparazzi. Still, Amal went through it like a true professional. With that, their relationship intensified. Of course, why wouldn't it? He was in London most of the time, and his visits became more frequent. At times when distance played the game with them, they wrote each other letters and kept in touch all the time. This also helped strengthen their bond and keep them together. In 2014, George Clooney and Amal visited Kenya when they went on a safari together. Amal intensely loved giraffes, and George, being the perfect gentleman, indulged her passion. So they visited the Giraffe Manor, where the giraffe stuck its head through the windows and even kissed the humans who came by. However, that's not where we get the shocker of our lives. George returned from that trip with Amal and excitedly showed his friend, Ben Weiss, a picture of Amal with the giraffes. It was right there, and then he mentioned his intention to marry. Being the perfect gentleman would mean pulling off an engagement that would move the mountains. Do you think George pulled it off? We'll soon find out. Every woman would love to experience the kind of proposal George put in place for Amal. George had planned it to the letter. He had cooked dinner for the two of them and even compiled a list of songs that included one by his aunt, Rosemary. However, he did not stop there. He rented an apartment and hid the ring in a small drawer behind where he knew Amal would sit. As the evening went on, it appeared George's plan was going well. Then the song sung by his aunt started playing, and almost immediately, he said to Amal, "I think there's a lighter in the drawer to relight the candle." Amal then extended a hand toward the lighter, and something fantastic appeared in front of her eyes: the ring. To this day, George still says that moment was a disaster. But Amal, in her innocence, said, "There is a ring in there," without realizing George was proposing to her. At the end of the day, George and Amal pulled it off. They laughed the misunderstanding off, and George eventually popped the question, to which Amal said yes. It might have only been their engagement years back, but George and Amal's wedding day won't be forgotten for years. The couple returned to the city where they met, Venice, Italy, where they planned to get married at Aman Canal Grande, Venice, on the 27th of September in the year 2014. On that day, the couple was surrounded by those closest to them. It was the evening of the 27th of September when the wedding ceremony of George Clooney and Amal Clooney took place in Venice, and you could see the joy lit on people's faces as they stood in front of Cipriani. Nick Clooney, the groom's father, was seen drinking champagne as he and his wife Nina waited to board one of the fancy water taxis the couple hired to ferry their guests to the reception venue. The water taxis were all adorned with the AG monogram flag and parked outside the Cipriani, eagerly waiting for the A-list attendees to take them to the wedding. What a guest list it was! The big names present were rock star U2 singer Bono and his wife Ali Hewson, Cindy Crawford and Randy Gerber, George's business partner, Matt Damon and his wife Luciana, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, and Bill Murray. Fashion royalty was also out in full force, and Anna Wintour, the editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine, was not left out. George's parents, Nick and Nina Clooney, were immensely happy for their only son as they waited to mark his most special day. Ramzi and Baria Alamuddin, Amal's parents, were also present and looked thoroughly pleased. George's sister Adelia, his friend and director Ben Weiss, Amal's brother Ziad, and a few other relatives were also on board. Alessandro Greco, a longtime driver who was George's longtime friend, was also a guest at the wedding. Other notable guests honored on the day included George's cousin, Miguel Ferrer, Richard Kind, Ellen Barkin, producer Grant Heslov, and his wife Lisa. Everyone knew the ceremony would be the wedding of a lifetime because friends and family came from all over the world to see George and Amal take their wedding vows. When it was finally time to go and take his lovely bride, Amal Alamuddin, who spent the night at Aman Hotel, there was a lot of joy as they made their way across a sea of happy supporters who welcomed them with loud cheers and lined the bridges from Rialto, Accademia, and the balconies and corridors of the Grand Canal. The scene was breathtaking, from the beautiful scenery Venice gave to the water taxis. A local couldn't contain his excitement and said, "I have never seen anything like this in Venice before." George, the dashing gentleman, arrived clad in a Giorgio Armani black new suit, which complemented his physique properly. The beautiful bride, Amal, looked breathtaking at the age of 36, and she donned an Oscar de la Renta gown. The couple were wed by none other than their close friend, Walter Veltroni, the former mayor of Rome. It is impossible to name another person more qualified to have officiated the wedding between George Clooney and Amal Alamuddin's wedding ceremony in Venice, Italy. Walter made the ceremony even more remarkable, having been a close friend of George's. No one would have done it better. This is not the only high-profile wedding that Veltroni has organized. He was also seen at the celebrity weddings of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes in 2006. After the bride and groom posed for the photographs, the couple and their families joined friends for their exquisite reception, with all sorts of Italian music playing in the background. As they headed to the lavish dinner reception by the sunset, they indulged in an exquisite menu that included an appetizing lemon risotto with lobster, lemon ricotta agnolotti with arugula pesto, and chianina beef with porcini mushrooms. The dinner was wonderful, and every dish served was prepared to taste good to the eye, ear, and tongue. For the entire evening, George and Amal were extremely happy, filled with love, laughter, and music. That evening was one that George and Amal considered as one of the highlights of their lives. As they waltzed and danced, everybody could see and tell that this love would last till eternity. Were they right? Or did things fall apart at some point? We'll find out soon, so stay tuned. Before the beautiful love story of Hollywood actor George Clooney and human rights lawyer Amal Alamuddin was sealed by their spectacular outdoor wedding in Venice, Italy. The couple was seen together in London and have even traveled to Tanzania and Seychelles. They tried as much as they could to keep their relationship discreet until George was called on stage during a charity benefit in Tuscany, Italy, on the 7th of September 2014. With Amal by his side, George went on the stage and in front of everyone and declared his love, saying, "Well, I would just like to say to my bride-to-be, Amal, that I love you very much, and I can't wait to be your husband." Now, they are married. The pair got their marriage license in August of that same year, so you may be right to say they had their own fairy tale story come true. As she reflected on her daughter's wedding, Baria Alamuddin, Amal's mother, was truly emotional and impressed with the event. George and Amal radiated love all night, she shared with People in an interview. For Baria, the wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime occasion that she will always have imprinted in her heart. The wedding was so unbelievably special. It was legendary. It's been years since George and Amal blessed the world with their lovely wedding, and since then, they have become parents of 2 lovely children. On the 16th of June, 2017, their gorgeous and lovely twins, Ella and Alexander Clooney, came into the world, and these little bundles of joy brought so much happiness to the couple. As you all know, different parenting styles come with parenthood. Everyone does what works for them. So let's look at how the parents have navigated family life and what the twins' lives look like today. Parenting and parenthood. As you already know, the turning point in George Clooney's life was when he left his bachelor days behind. It was only in 2017 that sources could confirm that the couple was pregnant with twins. Finally, George, 56, and Amal, 39 at the time, were beaming, and their families were happy to share in their joy. George, for instance, had difficulty concealing his joy when he answered questions in an interview, saying, "We are really happy and excited. It is going to be an adventure." He and Amal had embraced it all with their arms wide open. Nevertheless, George has never been averse to the notion of fatherhood. In a 2002 interview with People, he said, "I think it's the most responsible thing you can do to have kids." In 2015, after his marriage to Amal, he acknowledged that being married just changed everything. After the media published information regarding Amal's pregnancy, the couple disappeared from the public limelight. However, they took the world by surprise in late February 2016 when they walked the red carpet at the 42nd Caesar Awards in Paris. Amal was stunning in a white strapless gown with a feather ruffle at the bottom, and she managed to hide her bump perfectly. Subsequently, George and Amal Clooney became parents to their twins on the 6th of June 2017. The couple was blessed with Alexander and Ella at St. Mary's Hospital in London. Alexander arrived first at 12:54 p.m., and from then on, people became keen enthusiasts of the Clooneys. Ella, on the other hand, was born only 2 minutes after Alexander arrived. It was immediately obvious from the start that she was quite similar to Amal, mini Amal if you will. Excited that his daughter looks a lot like Amal, George couldn't help but fan over her in his interview with People. "She has big, beautiful eyes. It's incredible." Of course, as the twins actively developed their personalities, Alexander's character was more extroverted, while Ella was slightly more reserved, especially around the grown-ups. George also recalled that Alexander was a lot more playful, while Ella was very serious, and she wanted everybody to follow the rules. So far, George Clooney has found it an interesting experience raising his twins. On Good Morning America, George reflected on what raising them felt like and said, "Well, twins tell you a lot." He added that while raising twins simultaneously, he realized they also have diverse personalities. He said, "When you have twins and you are raising them at the same time, the same way, and they are completely different human beings, you realize how little a say you have in who they are." However, George and Alma have learned that, as parents, it is important to set boundaries and values. Yet, it is amazing that they understand their twins are creating their persona despite whatever they do. George Clooney has also been enjoying his free time, spending as much time with his family as possible and enjoying every little thing it comes with. From engaging in domestic chores to reading Peppa Pig and Dr. Seuss to his twins, he has inadvertently become an experienced narrator, demonstrating each story detail with precise body movements. Family time is a big deal, and the Clooneys like casual walks. The family's tennis court has also been turned into a playground for the kids, and there is a bouncy castle where they can play, giggle, and have the best time of their lives with their parents. However, that's not the only thing fatherhood has brought to George's doorstep. George is such a huge prankster, and recently, his daughter Ella has been the one who gives her dad a run for his money. Initially, she did not like the pranks her father pulled and thought that all he was doing was gross, but she saw that Alexander was having lots of fun and everyone else was smiling, so she joined in the craziness too. It is impossible not to giggle at the mischievous antics of the Clooney twins. George said that now, the two have a rather strange sense of humor. They put peanut butter on their shoes so that it looks like poo on their shoes and stuff, and they think that's funny, George shared while chuckling at the memory. George is wearing the pranked shoe, and you bet it's so much fun for the twins. He quipped to E.T. that his job is to teach his kids terrible things when it comes to pranking. But Ella has taken the lead. George realized he created a miniature of his mischievous self. Interestingly, Ella is not just a prankster. She is also growing to be a fashionista. George narrated a funny story about how she likes to emulate her mom Amal and tell her, "Mine," whenever she takes a purse from her closet. Of course, you can see that Ella inherited her mom's sense of fashion, and we cannot wait to see how colorful their lives will be. Of course, Alexander's interest in cars is already evident, and George couldn't help but chuckle at his son's interest. "He goes outside and hugs my car," George shared, imitating Alexander, "car," and he hugs it. As cute as this may be, George quipped that this is hardly practical, especially with a steering wheel in front of him. It's not good. He climbs and stands right on the wheel as well. Like any other parent, George takes his responsibilities as a father seriously and tries to avoid missing a thing in this process, mostly because his children might be twins. Still, they each have their distinct characters and personalities. You can see that George loves every moment of it, even when his children are playing pranks and running around the house. So, what's next for the twins? In a conversation between George Clooney and Ellen DeGeneres, George shared funny stories he experienced related to fatherhood during her show. The actor talked about his experiences with his children, especially the language differences from traveling with them. For example, as the twins are now spending much time with their mother, Amal Clooney, they are gradually picking some parts of her British accent and speech. George laughed heartily when he recalled the day his son referred to a zebra as zebra. "My wife is very, very English, British through and through," George chuckled. "I've got to fix that. That's not going to happen." However, that's not all of it. Looking closely at George, you can see how much he takes pride in his children's smartness, especially how well they speak. "They are very smart," he said. "They got my wife's brains." Before they even clocked 2 years old, the twins knew how to count from 1 to 20 in English and Italian, which impressed their dad. "I'm still trying to do the English part," George said as he teased himself. He jokingly complained that he couldn't handle it anymore, given how smart his kids are. "I got a lot of dumb relatives, man. It's awfully easy," he teased himself again. Though the family is busy raising twins, George can only stare in awe at how disciplined Alexander and Ella are. "They run in 2 different directions," he laughed, "and it is a lot." Still, he wouldn't have it any other way, even with all the difficulties with parenting. Also, do you know how kids fall sick and leave their parents scared? The twins were down for a few nights at the Clooney family house, which sure gave the Clooney household a dose of sleepless nights. "They were sick for a few days, which does sort of ruin your night," George shared. However, the twins' sleeping arrangements caused no problems, even on those restless days when it may sound like they were fighting over something. "They sleep in the same room most of the time," he said, "unless they wake each other up." The best part? At the time, they had not yet reached the awful age of 2 when kids are uncontrollable and throw tantrums here and there. "They're very well behaved," George said with a smile. It is sheer luck that George Clooney is alive today to tell this story. On the 5th of August 2018, the Oscar winner was shooting his Hulu series Catch-22 in Sicily when the disaster occurred. That day, George was on his way to a set on his bike, and he had an accident with a car that sent him flying in the air and then onto the ground. With his life clearly at risk at that stage, the first thing on George's mind was his twins, Alexander and Ella, and his wife Amal. It sure is a miracle George was not badly hurt. Following his accident, George revealed to ITV's This Morning in 2019 that he was done riding motorcycles. George's lifetime of work ought to be recognized, and what better way to do that than to acknowledge him at the Kennedy Center Honors in Washington, D.C., with Clooney's loving family beaming with pride and Amal with joy. Their faces said it all. When asked if his little ones thought he was cool, he said, laughing, "They're 5, so right now I am golden." Amal sweetly continued, saying, "They say Papa can fix anything but the weather. He can solve all their problems and is the funniest person they have ever met." What about the holidays? How did George and his wife cope with having their kids around? With the holidays fast approaching, George Clooney found out how to ensure his kids listened to him, and the resourceful dad showed all his strategy on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. This strategy he employed: gets to work early in the morning when the kids, Ella and Alexander, are still asleep, and immediately they are awake and start getting noisy. George is right on the scene. He stands outside their door and, in doing his best impersonation of Santa, booms, "Oh, hey, hi, Santa." Immediately, the twins sit right up, happy at the sight of the jolly old man they associate with the gift-giving season. George doesn't break character and acts like Santa when he asks what brings him to the house. In his Santa-disguised voice, he replies, "I'm just making sure the kids are being good kids." As soon as Santa appears, he is gone, leaving behind well-mannered kids. The Hollywood star wants his twins, Ella and Alexander, to live as normal as possible, mostly because he knows that being born to one of the world's most famous men would attract much attention. Speaking to AARP magazine, he said that he and his wife, Amal, intentionally gave their children conventional names to avoid attracting unwanted attention. They are already going to have enough trouble, George revealed. And that is what most children who have celebrities as parents face today. It's hard being the son of somebody famous and successful. He also jokingly added that he didn't want to give them weird names. George's quest for a normal life for his children is also driven by the need to protect them from harm. As he shared with GQ magazine, his work caused him to deal with significant matters that can result in threats from dangerous persons. To protect his kids, George is bent on protecting their privacy. "I have a goal of trying to protect them," he said. "I don't want pictures of my kids in the public domain," he added. "We cannot wait to see what path the twins will follow. We sit on the edge, wondering if either of them will pursue art just like their father, or if they will completely pursue an educational degree. Who knows?" What are your thoughts on George and Amal's love story and parenting style? Share your views in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Before you go, explore the other videos displayed on your screen.